Hey gardening friends, I wanted to give you one final indoor seedling update for the year. There's a couple of things that you have not seen in any of the previous updates, so I thought it'd be fun to jump on and do a quick update. You can see the shelves are looking really sparse, which is a great thing. Today is May 12th, and I've been able to harden off a lot of the seedlings, move them outdoors, and they're in ground. So I'm really happy with the progress that I've made so far. My goal was to have everything in the ground by mid-May. I'm probably not going to make that date, but certainly, by the end of this week, early next week, I should be able to have everything planted and in the ground. So let's take a quick look at what we have remaining under the lights. This first tray is something new that I haven't shown before because these were some seedlings that I started really late. I started these on April 5th, and it was a bunch of coleus. I have 3 varieties. This one is called Spun Glass, and it has almost like a stained glass effect. It's a very fine, detailed coleus. I'm not seeing that, and right now maybe they're just too small, and that design will become apparent when they get much larger. These need to be planted out in individual cells like I did here. So these were filled with plants, and then I just divided them into individual cells. So I still need to do that with these over here. And then the next one here, this is a coleus called Chocolate Mint. It has the dark kind of burgundy foliage with the chartreuse trim. These are just stunning. Can't wait to see these outside. And then here you have the Pineapple Surprise, which you've seen before because I did grow some earlier in the season, and I sold them on Facebook Marketplace, and I mean they went immediately, very fast. So I wanted some for myself, so I started another round of the Pineapple Surprise. So these were all started on April 5th, so they're a little more than a month old, and they'll be ready to go outside in the next week. And then back here, we have things that you've seen before. This is some Coreopsis. I think it's called Double Starburst. Didn't write the name, but I think it's called Double Starburst or something like that. And it's I've had this in my garden before. This is the Crispedia drumstick, and I think I have 2 or 3 of these. I have to be very careful. I may put these in pots because the rabbits really like to munch on those. And then here you have the basil that I started, the green basil. This is just the Genovese basil, a very common basil. And then this is another basil. I think this is called Purple Opal, if I'm remembering correctly. It's a nice purple basil. On this tray, this is a struggle bus tray, but they'll be fine once they go outside. These are the hot biscuit amaranth, and you can see they're yellow. They probably need to be fed. They're struggling. I'm not sure where I'm going to put those, which is why they haven't moved outside yet. Then we move up to this tray. This is the tray of Gomphrena. There's 2 varieties here. There's a salmon, and then there's an Audrey purple red. I've moved some of these outside. This is not even all the ones that I started from seed. I planted some out. I have a planter on the deck, so every summer I always plant those with the Gomphrena, so those have gone out. Not quite sure where I'm going to plant these out. I have 2 places in mind, but we'll see. This next tray, these are onions. These were just extra onions that I had. You can see they're actually starting to bulb up a little bit. I don't know, if I have time, I may go out there and plant some of these up just to add a few more onions to the garden, because we had a lot of weird weather and I did lose some of my onions. So maybe I can take these out there and replace the ones that were lost. And then here we have an example of starting things too early indoors. So this is an acorn squash. You can see they're all kind of faded and yellow, just not doing well. They'll be going outdoors soon, but obviously they've started to bloom, which is not a good thing. But I think once I get these outdoors, they'll be fine. This is the watermelon. This is the sugar baby watermelon. And then back there, we have the cantaloupe. So all of them, as you can see, they're kind of yellow and discolored. They've started flowering. And this is all has to do with the fact that they're stressed. They've been in these pots for too long and they really need to get outdoors. My hope is that once I plant them outdoors, they'll bounce back and they'll be fine. And just as a reminder, I'm going to probably only grow 2 plants of each, even though I have 4 plants potted up in each of these peat pots. I just want to keep the strongest plant. So I'll plant them out, I'll see which one is doing the best, and then I'll just trim the 2 that I don't want. I'll just trim down to the soil surface. So this is another struggle bus plant, all my fault. These are Dara, and I keep forgetting to water them. One thing about these peat pots, they dry out really, really fast, much faster than the plastic pots. And so I tend to forget to water these, but they keep coming back. You can see there's some dead foliage here that I need to cut off. That's because I would forget to water it and it would die, but it just keeps pushing new growth. So can't wait to get these outdoors. The reason that I grew these in peat pots was because this is my first time growing Dara, but my understanding is they don't like to have their roots disturbed. So I planted them in these peat pots so that when I do plant them outside, I can just plant the entire pot in the ground. And just a little side note, this is a cutting from a jade plant, a house plant that I have. And I thought, well, let me see if I can try to root this. And it has rooted. I can tell that it has grown. The leaves are much larger, and you can see that it's pushing 2 new leaves on the top. So I'm excited about that. The last shelf are my tomatoes and peppers. So one thing as a seed starting gardener, we all get very excited to start our seeds really early, in February and March. And when you do that, you end up with really huge plants that you have to try to manage, and you have to up pot them and water them, and you don't have enough room under the lights to manage your plants. So one of the things that I've been doing specifically with my tomatoes and peppers, mostly with the tomatoes, is I've tried to push back my start date as late as possible. And this year I planted these tomatoes the latest I've ever started tomato seeds. So my average last frost date is April 15th, and 6 to 8 weeks prior to that is like February 15th is 8 weeks. That's far too early to start tomatoes. And when I first started growing tomatoes, that's what I used to do. And I would have these huge tomato plants that I had to up pot, and they didn't fit under my lights. And so I'm like, this is crazy. I'm not going to plant these outside on April 15th. I'm not going to plant these out until May. So I started calculating my start date, when to start my seeds, based on when I anticipate that I'll be planting them outside. So for my tomatoes and peppers, that's going to be mid-May at the earliest. The other thing with tomatoes, they only need about 6 weeks indoors. 8 weeks is almost too much, in my opinion. So this year, I started these on April 1st with the idea that I would most likely plant these out closer to May 15th. And you can see these tomatoes look terrific. They're actually a little larger than I thought that they would be, but that's enough time. It's been 6 weeks. And I will not have to up pot these. I started these in these little 4-pack cell trays. And this is what they will stay in until they go outside. So just keep that in mind when you're starting seeds, and you'll learn from year to year. That's why it's great to keep a journal for different varieties that you grow every year. You'll be able to track and know when to start them, not necessarily based on your average last frost date, but based on when you intend to plant them outdoors. So I'm really happy with this, and I think this is something that I will do from now on. I can just plant these up and then have them go right outside. I don't have to worry about up potting the plants, and they don't get too tall. You know, they still fit under my grow lights, even though they're really reaching the limit. So I think 6 weeks is enough time to start tomatoes from seeds, in my opinion, because they germinate very quickly. On a heat mat, I find that tomatoes germinate in about 3 days. This tray, these are peppers. They're all sweet peppers. Now they're looking a little stressed. You'll see the leaves are starting to curl, and that's mostly because they're probably a bit root bound. Let me see. Yeah. You see that? They really need to be up potted. So that tells me that I started these perhaps a little too early. I started these, I have to look at my journal, but I started these in late March. So I may have to either start them a little bit later, or, you know, I'll just have to up pot them. The one thing you'll notice is that these are, because they are stressed, they're starting to bloom. And I don't want that. These plants are much too small to start producing fruit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here and I'm going to pop off every blossom that I see. So I don't want these plants producing fruit right now. So I'll go through and I will do that. And once I plant these outdoors, I will remove any blooms that I see, probably for about 2 weeks. Because in those 2 weeks, excuse me, in those 2 weeks, I want the plant to be able to establish a strong root system, a strong stem system, so it can support all of the beautiful peppers that I will be growing later on in the season. So you don't want your plants producing flowers too soon. And when they start producing this small, that's generally a stress mechanism. They're just too stressed. And in this case, I know that they are, because they're just really root bound. So these will be going outside in the next week. So the varieties that I'm growing this year, I only grow sweet peppers. These are bell peppers, California Wonder. And back here, what is this one? Oh, this is a purple bell pepper. So California Wonder bell pepper. This is Purple Beauty bell pepper. And this is the Corno de Toro pepper. And this is something that I'm growing for the first time. This is the Jimmy Nardello. So excited to see that. This will be the first time. The Purple Beauty, I think I've started those from seed before, but I don't know, there was a mix-up with the seeds. So I'm kind of interested to see if this is actually a Purple Beauty, because when I grew the seeds last year, I ended up with some hot pepper. So we'll just see what that's all about. So these, again, will be going outside in the next couple of weeks. And again, the first 2 weeks that they're outside, I will be pinching off any blooms that they may generate, because I do not want these to start producing fruit this soon. They're way too small. So that's what I have, fellow gardeners. I just Only have a few things to get into the garden, and I think in the next week or so, all of these things should be outdoors and in the garden, and I'll be able to show them to you on my next garden tour. So with that, happy gardening. Hope all of your seedlings are doing well. Happy gardening.